everybody. This is the Washington Wrestling Rankings podcast. Back again. I am Matt. He is Sam Otto, and we just want to personally thank everybody for tuning in to episode 1 with Trey Haynes. Sam, it was kind of cool. We did a little bit of cross training over the weekend with our club. And they were like, "Hey, are you the guy from the podcast?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." Like, I wasn't intending for anybody to really, give me any juice from it, but I guess that's what we're trying to do, man. We're trying to juice some people up. So, how's your day today, brother?
I'm doing good, Matt. The first step went awesome. Thanks to Trey Haynes for hopping on. I mean, that was like we said in the first step, that was kind of a no-brainer for us, just because we have the close connection there. And now we're rolling forward, and we're excited to keep this rolling with interviews. Like we said, that was the plan. Just keep people tuned in with getting plugged into wrestlers, and now we got a coach coming up here, which is awesome. It's a great opportunity for us to expand our network a little bit and have a chat with Brian Owen, who's at Inland Northwest in Spokane. So super excited to talk to Brian and have episode 2 get going here.
Yeah, I know you're excited too, and I am too, because Brian Owen was a blast from my past, and I graduated in 2007. Brian's a pretty nasty wrestler from back then, and we'll get into a little bit of our personal history with Brian Owen. But why don't we start off with a little bit of the recaps from the U.S. Open?
Yeah, so I was able to watch this thing pretty closely. My niece Malia was wrestling in it, so I was texting my brother, who's a coach at Ascend, coaching down there in Vegas, and just trying to follow all the Washington wrestlers through and through as much as I could. I know it was super busy. It was a long tournament, freestyle and Greco.
Sam, also, not to interrupt you too much, but Faith Tarrant just joined in to our Instagram live here, and we're about to talk about her a little bit here.
We are.
So we just want to give her a little juice. Faith, congrats. Good job over the weekend. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, congrats. Yeah, she got second place at 235 on the girls' high school showcase. Yeah, it was cool, man. Like, thank God for technology nowadays, man. Like, we just, I could be at my computer here working, and then also just on the side on my other monitor, just tap in and watch some of these matches while I'm trying to get some work done. And it was awesome. I got the text messages on my phone through Flow, and was able to see you guys compete. And we walked away with a few All-Americans, and so yeah, I just wanted to kind of like run down and just highlight the guys and girls who play. So just real quick, at U15 we had Gavin Wells get 5th in Greco at 68 kilograms. Like I said in that one live that I went on a couple days ago, it was like midway through the tournament. He surprised me. I don't know if he surprised himself, but he had a great tournament, man. He had a comeback win, down 7-1 in the quarters, and guts a guy like 3 times with 20 seconds left to get to the semis, and was all American right there, right then. And so he gets 5th in Greco at 68 kilograms. Cannon Frechette, 4th place. I think he's out of Camas High School. He got 4th in Greco at 75 kilograms. And then Caden Brooks got 5th at U15 and freestyle and Greco at 85 kilograms. U17, man, our guys, the boys, ran into some buzzsaws. I mean, just there are so many good wrestlers at this tournament. I mean, we know, the 3 of us who are about to, be in this podcast together, we know when we get to these big freestyle Greco tournaments, it's just crazy, man, how many good nationally ranked wrestlers are in these brackets. So we only walked away with one All-American. It was Noah Koyama, 8th place at 60 kilograms. He had a great tournament, had a great throw that I throw on our account. It was, I think it was his first match that he had that nice trapped arm throw going out of bounds. And then U20, Lars Michelson out of Bremerton got 3rd at 87 kilograms. Another weight that we were just looking at was like deep, but I think Lars probably could have been in the finals in that weight, but
Sam, we got a Facebook question from Joe Davis. Do you guys know why Justice Zuniga didn't compete? He was on the list. It's a good question. Sam, did you dive into that at all?
No, I don't know. We could, it was his brother too didn't compete, so I'm not sure. There was a lot of names that weren't in there and competing, for whatever reason. I don't know why.
But we could probably reach out and try to get an answer like that, and maybe bring it to the masses, because I know that that's something as we continue to do what we do. They're going to look to us for a bit of that information, and so we'll try to reach out and find some of those answers and maybe get back to you, Joe. Thank you for the comment. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, no, we didn't see any top finish folks there, which is kind of surprising. They've been going to some national tournaments recently, so maybe, they're just taking some time off and taking a break. No worries there. We didn't have all our dogs there. It wasn't like, everybody has to be there, but whoever was there, we were watching you. Yeah, Lars got third at U20, 87 kilograms in Greco. And then the girls, man, I mean, it's just, as soon as I started this thing, it was, I'm a guy and I've been following the guys for a long time. And, but now that I got a niece in the game and she's doing well and kind of tapping into what the ladies are doing, the ladies are good, man, out of this state, man.
Yeah, that's one thing that we had talked about when we first tried to like drum up what this was about, is just kind of knowing and understanding how phenomenal the women are here in Washington State at that level. I mean, they continuously get out there to show how great they are. And it's really something that, as we get Brian Owen on here pretty soon, something I'd like to actually talk to him about, because see, back in our day, we didn't have very much, there was no girls women's programs. You had girls placing at state, they had to wrestle guys the entire time, and that was like such an awe-inspiring moment when you seen some of that stuff happen. But go ahead, wrap this up, because I'm trying to get to Brian here.
Yeah, we got to get to Brian, but real quick, just to highlight the ladies, and one of them is one of Brian's gals out of Inland Northwest. But first, we had Ashley Naranjo get 6 at 105, and all these girls are nationally ranked through Flow, through the high school rankings. Libya Roberts is one of Brian's gals at Inland Northwest. She was in the finals, ran into a tough match, almost got a takedown at the buzzer to take it at the high school showcase there. She got second at 110. Jojo McDaniel, I'm sure you guys saw her big head and arm on our little highlight that we showed of her at 115 getting third. That was awesome. And then Lily Lamoth, I hope I'm saying that last name right. She's out of White River, got 8th at 130. Sadie Evans, 7th at 155. She's out of Ford Dynasty. Isabella Phillips walked away with the championship at 190. Wow. She's out of Outlaw up north. She's from Squalicum High School. She is a dog, man. That girl is something else, man. It was fun to watch her in the finals. Mia Senega, she's out of Everett High School with our co-host Matt. Yeah, there.
I don't actually coach her very much, but she's a wonderful person, and I really enjoy being around her every time we do get a chance to kind of scrap. And she's tough. She's strong too. She's
great gal, man. I've actually she's in the Ascend room. I've actually like popped into her circle of 3 when somebody's gotten injured sometimes, and coach is just like, hey, you got to jump in there and just just to wrestle around with her, and it's fun, man. She's a great gal. She got 6th at 190, and then Faith, who according to Matt has been tuning in here, she got 2nd at 235, so finalist at the girls high school showcase there as well. So we had a great showing with the ladies. The guys, it's deep, man. Like all these guys are in this tournament at the US Open. Like you're looking at the guys who are seeded, the guys who are in the finals, semifinals, getting on the podium. They're all like D1 commits. Like most of them are. So that's the cool thing about freestyle, and I'm excited to talk with Brian about it. Like, some people dog on freestyle a little bit, but when you go to these big tournaments, you're looking at guys who are wrestling folk style, and they're already like D1 commits. They're ready to go, and are doing the folk style thing like it's no problem. So it was super fun watching you guys. Super proud of the way that we showed out as a state, and that was
So I got an Instagram comment, and I think this is in reference to Zuniga, but it says he got a little banged up before the tournament. I want to say that's Trey Haynes' dad that responded to that. But let's go ahead and bring Brian Owen in. Brian, look, he's literally at the training center right now. My guy's like, hey, you want to get on the podcast? He's like, well, let me finish up my wrestling practice first, which was tough for me today. I had to work out, and then I had to hustle here. I thought I was going to miss it because on Highway 2, there was an accident. Getting backed up on Highway 2 is pretty tough. But Brian, welcome to the Washington Wrestling Rankings podcast, my friend. There wasn't none of this stuff back in our day. So first question I got to ask you right quick is, this new multimedia world that we have in here, I think it's got to be beneficial for everybody. And I would say you would probably agree to that too. Having a lot more publicity for all these wrestlers, for everyone, I think just drives them a little more. Do you agree with that? Or you think maybe there's a negative to it? Or?
Well, first things first, thanks for having me today. Lost my voice yelling at the US Open, some good, some bad. But to answer that question, like what you guys are doing right now is, possibly trying to catch the state back up, right? Given the platform to national level competition, giving it to people that are going out there and succeeding, showing other people that you can also do that, right? And that's what these media outlets are able to do, is not just show you what can be, but give you the recognition and the success, and show the next group or the current group, hey, I want to be on that podcast. Hey, I want those accolades.
That's awesome, Brian. And I want to read a little bit of your accolades here. This is from Sam. Sam wrote this down here, but 4-time state finalist, 2-time state champion, 2004 Greco national champion, 3rd at the Pan Am Games, Pac-12 champion, 3-time NCAA national qualifier. And what's next on Brian Owen's list? I mean, what's more for you? I know as you've gotten into coaching, I know that's a big deal for you, but do you have kind of, I know back when we were wrestling, we had all these goals we wanted to get to. What are some of the goals you have on your list now as a coach to add to all the successes for you?
That's a multi-tiered question, right? Everybody's a little bit selfish, I think, in this, to where you want it to be about everybody else. You want it to be about their career and their success. Each and every person that walks in here is taking a risk, taking a chance on you to help them get better. And so I think that's the goal. But also, to add to that, some of the selfishness, like you say, you're still in it to compete yourself. And so luckily enough, this year I was picked to coach the U20 Pan Am team in freestyle. Oh, lights went off there.
Congratulations. We can still see you, my friend, perfectly well. So you're coming through more than clean. So continue on that. Sorry.
So that was, super thankful that Coach Russell and the gang at USA Wrestling decided that, I was worthy enough to join that. And so getting to be down there and, hand out paperwork for the Pan Am Championships to the winner as he comes off the mat, as they're hugging and high-fiving their coaches, and, getting to be a part of that, really fun. So I'm excited to go to Lima, Peru in July and get to be with the best guys in the country. And then once again, being at the US Open, or the World Team Trials, it's the best wrestling that's ever been in the United States. Every weight is deeper than it's ever been. There was some weights where you'd show up, whenever back in the day was, and there was a champion that was already going to be crowned before he went there, because heads and tails above everybody else. And the depth now is, something that's hard to describe, to where on given weekends, guys that are placing 5th and 6th could win the tournament.
Wow. And then one thing you said, it was it Lily Roberts that you coached over the weekend, Brian?
Yeah, Libby. Yep.
Oh, Libby. Excuse me about that. Can you speak about her tournament?
Yes. One thing that really helped her is being at Women's Nationals a couple weeks ago here in Spokane, and she was 4th place there, down a couple of pounds in weight just because the age difference. And then going to this tournament, she didn't wrestle worse competition this weekend and wrestled better. And I would say a part of that is getting the opportunity to have national level competition, taking it back into the room, and then fixing a couple things. Not a lot, not changing the whole style, getting a little bit better at certain wrestling positions. That's the difference between 2 points for you or 6 points for them. And she did those things. She made those changes. I would say that the only correspondence that I've had with her since the tournament is I thanked her for being coachable.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the funnest thing. That's the funnest thing that you can have in the corner is somebody that's going to go out and compete their heart out every time. Whatever position it was, he was down in the semifinal, maybe by 6-7 points, and comes all the way back to win, close to the end of it with heart. And then in the finals, she finds herself in a hole again. And it's the same thing, like refusing to give up, clawing back. And then in a couple situations that she was getting scored on earlier in the bout and made the small, tiny correction, was coachable during the match, was coachable before, remembered the couple of things like, oh yeah, I gave up a point, shouldn't have, and I'm going to make the correction in the match. And that's awesome. The difference. That's the difference between her making the finals of one of the toughest tournaments in the country and some of the other athletes, falling just a little bit short.
Yeah, we're all we can echo the sentiment, Brian. You're doing it on a national stage, and Matt and I aren't. We're just doing it locally right now. But if you say things like that about a wrestler, that has got to make you pretty proud and make you pretty happy as a coach when you get somebody like that who is very responsive. And I was firsthand watching it when I was streaming it live on Flow, and I could tell that she was just real calm and wasn't trying to hit any home runs when she was down. She was just, you could tell that she was in the zone, and she had a great tournament, man. She had that semifinals match against that Iowa girl, man. She did a great job. And I didn't know what was going to happen in that one. That girl was tough, man, but you guys pulled it through, and that was awesome, man. It was great to see her show out. And I knew she had it in her. I felt like maybe, I could be wrong, but in my perspective, she fell a little short in at the U.S. Open in Spokane, but I felt like she really turned it on this past weekend, and one takedown away from winning the whole girls' high school showcase there. So that was great, man. So
yeah, and left a couple points on the board in certain situations, right? Almost takedown, almost turn, almost where she had a bunch of the almosts, and if she gets a couple of those, then the match is totally different. And so, I mean, that's where you're at, one of the best tournaments in the country, right? If you're 1 point here and there and one almost is the difference between winning and losing. And sure enough, if it was to re-happen 2 weeks from now, there's no doubt in my mind that there's very few come from behind wins because she corrects the almost, and doesn't give up the couple of points and gets the couple extras.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nice.
Sam.
Well, let's touch on the U.S. Open. We'll dive into that a little bit more, but I kind of want to dive into you a little bit, Brian. I want to we go back, we wrestled each other a little bit, and we were on dual teams together. But while I was prepping for this show, the biggest thing that stuck out to me is your last name, man. Like the Owen family is something else when it comes to Washington State wrestling, and what we're trying to do here is really promote this state and get it to higher levels. And when you think Washington wrestling, you think of the Owens, like to me. And I'm maybe a little more old school than some of our viewers, but you guys have a lineage of wrestlers, and there is what I thought was only a couple of Owens. There is like 6 or 7 of them out there. It's insane, man. And so I just want to ask you, like, what does your last name mean to you, and how are you carrying on the lineage of the Owen name nowadays? And talk about that a little bit for me.
Very proud of it. To your point, I had, my dad coached forever. Had a bunch of uncles that coached. Most of them were teachers, and a lot of it's given back. my Uncle Don, who I wrestled for in high school, one of his biggest thing is being a servant leader. It's not about you. It's not about just showing what it is. It's, what we say, helping everybody else get better, as a leader, right? Being a little bit of a servant. And I would say that, being the youngest of the cousins, I had really good examples too. And so, you can't take a lot of the credit for a lot of the work that all my cousins put in before me, because, as being the younger brother, the younger cousin, those mistakes they made, whether it's in life, in school, in sports, you get to learn from them as well. You get to learn from uncles that are teachers because their kids made mistakes, and then they impress on you, the changes that you can make, the positivity that you can do. And so that's just, right place, right time, being lucky that you had a bunch of cousins that had really good success in high school, that had good success in college. You had uncles that coached at every level, in wrestling. And, the other night, my Uncle Don and my Uncle Tim, who are both retired coaches here in Spokane, both in the Hall of Fame, are in at little kids practice, helping out 4 and 5 year olds.
That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, just doing my research again. We grew up together just on different sides of the state. And, I knew your dad just very well, just because, you and I were going to a lot of the same tournaments and stuff, specifically locally, but, knew your dad just because he was always around the wrestling scene. And Donnie, you'll be your head coach, that's your uncle at U High. But your dad, he was I just want to go back in time a little bit here and just touch on this a little bit, just for the viewers. It's like, John, he's in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and he was a head coach at North Idaho College from 1978 till 1997. His 18-year career at North Idaho, he coached 35 wrestlers to individual championships at the JUCO level and 102 All-Americans, which is unbelievable, man. Like, it seemed like he was the pillar of that NIC program, where we have a ton of high school wrestlers committing to now, because we don't have anything left in this state, unfortunately. But John is an absolute legend, and then Donnie, I was able to watch him at state a little bit, still getting fired up on the sidelines, coaching his guys at U High, and then your brother Tommy, who we haven't even talked about yet, was probably like 10 years older than you. That guy was unbelievable as well, right? Yeah, I mean, he was up there with my brothers. I think maybe a little bit younger than my brothers, but we knew him very well as well, and 3-time state champ, and is still continuing to coach and get back to the sport as well. So just want to shed some light on people who don't know about the Owen family, that this family is giving back to the sport and like no other. And we're just very thankful for you guys, and that kind of brings me to my next question. Like, what does being, or was there pressure for you growing up, like in the family, as you were, because I'm in a similar situation, like not on the Owen level, but the Otto level was, I had older brothers doing big things. Jordan was a 2-time national runner-up in Greco at Fargo, and I was 12 years younger than him, and it was like, well, you just have to do this. What was it like for you when you were growing up and having to follow in those footsteps?
The age difference probably helped a little bit, and why I say that is, so if your brother's wrestling at the NCAA tournament and you're wrestling at a high school tournament, mom and dad's focus is a little bit on him. The accolades and, the even local hype and all the rest of it, you're excited for the NCAA tournament. Not that people aren't excited for the state tournament. It's just, that's a different conversation. And so, to some of those regards, where it's a blessing in disguise, where you want to compete to that level one day. where I can't imagine, the Rainey brothers that are twins that were wrestling best 2 out of 3 this weekend, at the World Team Trials. Man, that's an everyday pressure that they have to like win now. Where I would say some of that's like, if your brother's making the world team and you're, just figuring out how to take losses correctly, fighting even though the other guy's better, but not giving an inch and doing your best. So I think that's a little bit different of like, I don't necessarily think I ever felt that pressure. And then by the time maybe the limelight's on you a little bit more, your success rate's pretty darn good.
I don't want to dive too much out of this family thing, because I do have a question there, but were you at all, was it never a question to you that you were going to wrestle beyond high school? I know that there's a lot of state champs, couple year state champs that kind of are in this little weird ball right now as seniors. I know I've spoken to them and they're like, I don't know that I want to wrestle in college. Was that ever a question for you, like, or no, because you knew that was the lineage you were following and you knew that the top of your mountain was a bigger mountain? Was there ever any thought about going to wrestle at the D1 level or any, post high school?
No, I don't think so. But to Sam's point, the first ever wrestling practice that I went to, the first 10 years of wrestling that I ever did, was at the North Idaho College wrestling room in the gym. And so if that's what you're immersed to right away, that's somewhat your own expectation, not other people's expectation. And so, a lot of the local coaches that we have wrestled for North Idaho back in the day. And so, your fondest memories and, the things that people bring up at tournaments are you riding around on their shoulders when you're, 4 or 5 years old. And these guys, maybe their stepping stone was North Idaho and then went on to wrestle Division I. And so again, you're just immersed into maybe a little bit different clientele than probably most people, but I don't think I ever felt the pressure of that. I think that was more the excitement of, I want to be like you, and I get also to see what you do and how you got there.
Yeah, I don't, again, I was like, I knew asking that question would lead me down another avenue or path, but would you recommend for, those kids that are maybe 2-time state champs that just don't have it in their mind, would you recommend them going the junior college route, even though they definitely have, could have the pedigree to go beyond there? Or would you recommend going straight to NCAAs and just getting your feet wet, at that level?
Yeah, scenarios are a little bit different. I would say if you lived somewhere different in the country and you're a late bloomer, the easiest one to use, the state of California or the state of Pennsylvania, if you can win a high school state championship by the time you're a senior, you're a Division I wrestler, because that's who you had to beat. You had to beat a guy with a scholarship to win.
Right.
That's not necessarily a knock on the state of Washington, but that's, a factual point, is very rarely do our guys have to beat a Division I guy to win their state championship. But that's super common for, most states. There's very few of them where, the level is that high always. But then again, if you're not beating Division I guys and then you get thrown into a Division I room, you're not ready to beat Division I guys. The sport's not that much fun. Like, right. To never be able to get your hand raised in the room in a go or in a match, or, even regardless of the singlet results. So no, you would want to put yourself in a position where it's enjoyable for you.
Right. There is definitely some times that you kind of sit back midway through season. You're like, why am I here? Like, why am I here right now? Cause yeah, you're right. It's not the funnest sport out there. Winning's fun. Being with your teammates is fun. Working hard is fun when you're not getting your butt kicked all the time.
It's part of the reason why we're doing this too. It just goes back to why we're trying to run this whole thing. It's like, it's hard, man. This sport is like nothing else. The classic Dan Gable quote is, once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. Like it's cliche, but it's true. Like it's freaking hard, man. So, that's why we're trying to, get these folks the recognition that they deserve, and then even the coaches too, man. That's a huge sacrifice as well, and they've already gone through it too as well. So that's why we're doing this, Brian. And
our guys that are going to Western Wyoming and North Idaho College and Clackamas and Great Falls and Northern Montana and Southern Oregon and Eastern Oregon are having success. That's a good thing. That should be applauded. That should be recognized. That again, that's not easy to be able to do. That's not, that's taking a different route, but it's still, again, it's not easy. And our guys still can have success at those points and enjoy it and get better, and possibly reach a pinnacle that, might be different one day. But no, there is nothing wrong, with going to the level that you're at right now to be able to level up.
And the reason why I was asking that question is I feel like the only thing that's wrong is the pain of regret, knowing that you were a state champion, knowing you had all this talent, and if you even, as a two-timer, you should be able to get some sort of, money to get into these colleges, to go and pursue wrestling and still get your degree and still with your student focused mindset. And I think the pain of regret's probably way worse, knowing, in 10 years, like, man, I know it was really hard in high school, and I was kind of burnt out on it, but you had a chance to get there at any level. And like you said, winning's not easy, and to win at any level is a success. And so that pain of regret stuff. I want to go back to the family stuff, Brian. Let's talk about your son. It's kind of cool as I'm getting older, and we're all getting older now from back in our days. We have kids that are getting into the sport. And I know that a lot of us around here, I'm not seeing a lot of our kids around other than the 8, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, but we're getting to the point where, how old's your kid now?
He just turned 14 yesterday.
Yeah. Wow. You're like, as a father, that's like this is, we're getting into the nitty gritty as the fun stuff. So let's talk about, and here's the thing. Maybe this is a good question to start with. Do you like coaching your kid? Cause some parents don't.
Some days, not all days. But again, like, that's, maybe I'm not answering the question right. So I coach practice most of the days. He's in the room all the time. That's a little bit different. But then in matches, like, I don't always want to sit in the corner. Sometimes I want to watch,
right?
And enjoy it, and like have a different perspective and not get caught up in, the emotional moment that you try not to as a coach anyway. But I can be so much more calm when it's somebody else. When Libby's in the finals of the national tournament, I'm lucky enough that her dad, Kevin, who's been college coach forever, coached at Oregon State, coached North Idaho, All-American in his own right. Like, he's got all the anxieties and I learned everything from him. It's so much easier to coach her in, those crunch time moments and all of that, where I can keep my cool, and I think she keeps her cool. And a lot of the other guys that I coach too, right? In those moments where things can go off the rails, you can take a step back. With your own kid, it's so hard to do. You're emotionally involved. And then their reactions are different, right? Like, they see dad upset, because I'm upset about all the other things. I'm upset about school and, being on time and work ethic and some of the other things that you harp on them nonstop about. And then you get in a match and you show that you're upset, and then they have the same reaction at home, which might be rolling their eyes or not taking it as, like, the reaction's totally different. If Kevin yells at my kid, and puts his finger in his chest, the result is infinitely different.
Yeah, no, I know. And that's kind of why I was asking, like, so I just want to put this out there. My daughter's 10, her dad's a wrestler, right? And that's all I talk about, it seems like, and that's all I've ever talked about, because it was the only sport I was ever good at. I'm 5'5", and what was I going to do? So when I took to wrestling, I was like, great. But I had a daughter, and it's like, okay, well, great. Women's wrestling's a thing. So she's never wanted to get into it. All of a sudden you can kind of see a light turn on in her brain, and she's on the mat this year during the season. I'm like, wow, this is the greatest feeling ever. And then she told me last week she wanted to quit. And I'm just like, so I'm asking you for advice now as a top level coach. I also, sorry to get too personal on the podcast, but, I spoke with a coach at Ferndale, Caleb. He was actually the Fargo coach for Washington a while ago or whatever. But we were talking about the same thing, where he took his kid, and his kid got thromped in his first tournament, and his kid just didn't want to come back. And so we had talked about, well, easing them into it, because sometimes when they get to that real big wall that they get, and sometimes they run away forever. And so I would ask you now, as a good coach and a father, as well as coach a good wrestler, I'm gonna have to bring it back up, but how soon is too soon before she starts running away from me at 10 years old? So a little bit of advice. I'm on the couch here, Brian.
I don't know if
Brian, I'm looking for an answer. Okay?
Gosh, when do they grow out? I don't know. He's still 14, and you have some of those days. But again, is that the ability to talk them off the ledge on the way home, or is that the ability to make sure that they never want to come back on the way home? Like, to not be able to take whatever happened in the room or whatever happened in the match and then take that home with you, to where then it's the car ride, then it's dinner, and then it's an hour later, and man, that'll wear on you too. So there's give and take, sometimes he wants to talk about it, and that's all he wants to talk about. And it's great, right? I'll talk about wrestling all day. And then sometimes we should probably have other conversations, because I don't have anything positive to say about it.
Right. And there's definitely times where you got to switch on the parent hat, take off the coach hat,
Yep.
and kind of, I guess, understand when your kids just needs a hug versus needs a coach,
Yeah, let me piggyback off that real quick. Jordan, my brother, was telling me, because he was coaching my niece at his daughter at the U.S. Open, and she was seated third at the showcase at 115 pounds, and she didn't place. And she's a freshman, which I don't know what her expectation was or what my brother's expectation was. I'm just a fan. I'm just watching as an uncle. But he said that in her last match that, she was just devastated. She was a match away from getting on the podium, maybe a couple matches, I'm not sure, but she was close. And he was saying that another parent came up to him right after the match and was just like, hey, like, you just need to be a dad right now, and take the coaching aside, because, most coaches in that situation, well, I wouldn't say most, but, a lot of times we're like, hey, like, what did you wrong? And like, how can we debrief this match? But the tournament was over for her. And my brother told me, he was just like, that was a total blessing that somebody came up to him and was just like, hey, just be a dad, just love her right now. And, I think that was a special moment for him and a special moment for her, just to be able to, like, embrace that moment, and not just, it's not all about wrestling. This wrestling is, a huge deal, but it's also life as well. And it's also about, like, dealing with adversity and all that. But, like, just to piggyback off that a little bit, like, what was it like because I know Ryder had a really good run, and Greco, man, he was almost on the podium, as a 14-year-old in the 15 U's. And so what was it like after his last match? What'd you say to him? Or, what kind of coaching or dad moment did you have with him there?
Lucky enough to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I had wonderful examples for uncles, and then my own dad was tremendous, for my brother and I. And sometimes maybe it's consistency, and that's what I get out of it a little bit, was like, gave him 30 seconds a minute, and then we talked about trap arm guts. It wasn't winning or losing, wasn't being disappointed or how I felt, how he felt, just kind of the consistency of the way that I would treat anybody else, which is give him a second. And then, you fell into a position. Here's the couple of things that make the difference. Leave it at that.
Coachable and being
leave
coachable.
it at that. Walk away, and then 10 minutes later, had a conversation about, I forget what it was, where the slushy machine is.
About Prime energy drink or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Because that's what I had another quick question, and sorry to I know Sam had a show sheet here, which is a couple serious questions, but I'm now getting into this because I'm a father. I love talking about this stuff, but is there stuff as a dad that you see today that I guess, okay, let me rephrase this question. A lot of people talk about how different it was when we were back in, you didn't have hydration tests. I think the level of athlete back then, maybe that's not a good way to put that, but we grinded, I think, a little bit different. Today, it seems like the way the world is going, these kids are a little bit different kids. Does your son have that grind and that dog in him that you did back in the day, that you remembered living through those days where the wrestling practices were gritty and tough and it wasn't like you ever had to pull it back? Or are you seeing that he's grown up and instilled some of that traits that you had in yourself from back in the day? Because that's where I find the difficulty that I have as a coach right now, is because I remember when I was, wrestling, and it was nonstop. We didn't stop for nothing. You ran, and it was like, that's what you did. It was
and
tough.
The generation before that was echoing the same sentiment that you're saying as well, right? Like, oh, we ran, 15 miles uphill both ways to school and all that.
Right. I guess
like
maybe our generation still was not as hard as those guys.
I would say yes. To the generational thing. And then, like, I really do want to pound this point in, though. The sport is different. It's so much better now, probably, at the age of the internet, with everybody has access to, really good competitions, world level competitions at a young age. The technique is so much better, so much more precise. Running through a wall 20 years ago, you give up 10 points now. In the first minute, you run at somebody, you try to be overly aggressive, less technique, more run your head through the wall to win. But maybe that's a little bit more folk style mentality than the freestyle mentality as well. But yeah, I would say it's a little bit different. And so, not yet to answer the question like about my own kid, but then luckily enough, he's got a bunch of little buddies. And so I'm kind of talking for all of them too, is like, they're getting to the point in which the change in direction to more gritty has to occur, or you'll keep being disappointed by being the last man to not be on the podium.
Yep. That's what it is. I think we're definitely, at least my coaching, we're kind of getting to that where it's like, I think we took over my alma mater at Everett High last year. We took over for a coach that has been there for 25 years, and we think doing things a little bit different than probably we would have done them. And so we kind of brought back a culture that was missing from the team for a while, and just kind of creating this higher level of what we expected out of them. And I think we burnt out a lot of them because they are just absolutely not used to it. And we felt we had to create some type of culture to kind of move on from where we were. So we decided to kind of hit it head on. But I think we're right there where you're talking with our kids, where it's like, hey guys, you had some small successes here, but if we want to really be where we're going to be, that mentality, that light does have to kind of switch on. Wrestling is not, it's hard. We talked about it. It's hard and it's not very fun, but losing's also not very fun.
High school and club are a little bit different in the manner of like the guys that show up to, the Inland Northwest here in Spokane are the 3 or 4 that would be willing to do whatever you ask them to do at any point in time for whatever high school they go to.
Yeah.
So you already get to start with the different expectation, and again, not all of them are state champions or state placers or any of that, but they want to be.
Right.
So you get to start with the guys that are willing to be coachable, willing to work their butts off, willing to give you whatever, whatever is necessary. And again, it's like, it's a little bit different than probably when we did it, because you need to be so much more technically savvy in 3 or 4 positions, in order to be a place winner at the World Team Trials. And in order to do that, you have to then find the grit to drill it every time in practice the way that you're doing it. You also have to have gritty teammates that are willing to do that for you, so you know what it feels like when a person gives 100% defense 20 times in a row, because that's what's going to happen in the tournament. Is the 20 times you get to a single leg, you will get 100% defense, and nobody's going to take a time off.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to this is a perfect transition, Brian. So you after you got done with Boise State, you coached at, this is based on my research, so I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but
if it's wrong, you can let them know it's absolutely
wrong.
wrong.
You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Southern Illinois at Edwards.
You coached at CVAL for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So you coached at CVAL for a little bit, then you went to Southern Illinois with your brother, and then that was, I don't want to say it's the end of the road for folk style with you, but you gravitated towards freestyle and Greco, and it feels like there's some passion in there with you when it comes to the clientele that you're working with a little bit. Because I personally, when I get out of folk style season, I've only been back in this for 2 years. When I get out of my folk style season and I go over to Ascend, I'm like, oh, now I'm dealing with some dogs, and now I can play a little bit, and I can really kind of let loose, and I'm not being a parent of 100 kids. I'm honing in on some of the dogs here. Is that what brought you to inland? Is that what kind of gravitates you toward the freestyle and Greco? Is really just kind of honing into some of the elite talent?
I would think so. I think that's part of maybe one of the first questions of that little bit of selfishness that you have as a competitor. Not that I don't necessarily like helping out at the high school, or helped out at the middle school a little bit when my son was in middle school. Nothing's below you by any means, but what do you get the most out of if you're going to give your time? I'm not a teacher, so I have a job that I don't get off work in time necessarily to always be at a high school practice to be as impactful as you would probably need to be to do that, to its best nature. And so they both fit really well. Is if you don't get off in time to do one, well, then you can best serve people in the off season. And so I've done that for years and years. Best fit my schedule, and then, best fit some of that competitive nature that you have to, if a guy has a goal to be a national champion, then I'm going to help him reach that goal.
Yeah, for sure. And so you were the head coach for the 14U dual team last year, and I don't know how far that goes back, but I know you were at least there last year. You guys got 8th in Greco, which is awesome. You guys were on the podium in Greco. Are you planning on doing that again next year or this coming summer?
Yep. I got one more year, so I'm going to try to do. So this is the second year that my son will be that age group as well, and so probably do that for 2 years, and maybe hopefully get to follow him through every couple of years as he's moving through the age groups as well.
Gotcha. How did you feel like last year went for you guys? I was looking at some of the results from last year. I know that when you and I were on the cadet team, man, we were getting third, and we were up there, man. We were competing with Pennsylvania, Ohio, and some of those teams. And I know it's changed a little bit nowadays. Some more of those guys are wrestling freestyle and Greco, and I think it just is a different talent pool nowadays. I don't know if it's necessarily
there was some good ones
as opposed to other people getting better. So
there was some good ones you already mentioned. So Frechette, Brooks, Wells, so all those guys are now All-Americans in the next level. Well, they were on our team last year. And so maybe that's a part of the reason why they're on the podium this year too, is putting themselves out there at national level competitions. Maybe that's the best thing that I'll say on this whole podcast is, in order to reach the goal the next year or in the following years, you have to put yourself, at risk of all your losses. You got to put yourself in national level competition so you can learn national level competition, regardless of the outcome of how the little guys did a year ago. They got better every single match, and not just because they might have themselves learned in their own match, but now you got 14 kids. And so you have, Coach Roberts and I are sitting there, and you're coaching every single one of them, every single match, and everybody's listening. And so now all of a sudden you're soaking it in, and now they're wrestling into the positions that you need to be in order to win. Well, if they're just kind of starting to figure those things out, they're not quite ready to win those positions yet, but they sure aren't giving up fours in bad positions. They're sure not going to their back. They're not getting, falling into, trap arms and laces all the time. Win or lose, now you're competitive in wrestling positions, and then you can be an All-American later.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And as part of the reason why, we wanted to have you on was just to, get the word out there for a lot of these, these wrestlers, because a lot of our following right now is wrestlers. And, I'm going to preach freestyle and Greco to my grave, because, I felt like it was the biggest benefit to my wrestling career, tenfold. And, if you get on one of these national teams, or even if you just enter into one of these tournaments, you're getting the highest level of coaching, competition, and experience that you can ever ask for. And you're right in front and center of that. So let me ask you, for this coming year, what's the selection process look like for you guys for 14 U's? Are you guys waiting for state champs, or like, how is it different than when you and I were around? Because
a little bit. You got to they'll take names. They, meaning myself and the guys who are going to help me out, we'll take some names from the folk style tournament, and then you're going to compare those with the freestyle and Greco that's this weekend. And so you're kind of looking for the best overall finishes for a lot of guys. There's a couple people that don't necessarily have the same success or even do Greco, that, okay, yeah, we're going to take you as a freestyle guy because your head's and above better at folk style and freestyle. So you get a majority of the matches in the freestyle tournament, and you need a guy or two behind you to help out with some Greco matches. Durability is one big thing, and that's been an interesting thing to coach duels, because to wrestle 20 times and to be beat up physically and mentally, and even though you're learning, that's hard on people. You need to have a little bit of time off, so you need a little bit of depth on the team too, because you need not guy number one and guy number two. You need a couple guys at each weight to share the load. You might be the very best guy, and if you have 3 heartbreaking losses in a row, man, you probably need to sit out one for your own, well-being. And so you can then freshen up your mind a little bit for a couple hours, and then come back and maybe start the ball rolling the other direction. Like, there's not a lot of benefit from 10 losses in a row, and the losses are going to get worse and worse and worse and worse because you're down on yourself.
Am I allowed to ask, like, I don't know if this is, but is it privy, but is there a couple people you already know off the top of your head that these are your guys you're taking already?
Oh, I wouldn't think so. I think it's an open game.
Nice.
Like, you have the 5, 6, 7 kids that were there a year ago. They still got to earn their spot by going and competing really well. You're making the assumption that they've already beat a couple of guys at the freestyle tournaments this year. They won or did really well at the folk style thing, so that they're going to put out the same type of performance and be really competitive. Then there's some guys that also, like, you don't have to win both styles, especially if you're a first year guy, to have coaches, parents, the entire arena take a look at you and say, wow, that guy's going to be good one day. Like, he's not winning yet because, look at the maturity level of a couple of the guys that he's wrestling, but he's toe to toe and, giving it his all. It's like, yeah, that guy needs to go on the trip too, because he needs the experience of being at national level competition, although he was 4th place in both styles.
Yeah, I was one of those filler guys. I'll tell you what, I was, I was not Sam, definitely not Sam, but
I was a filler
good.
guy too.
I loved that exposure. I think that exposure is what grew me so much. And heading into my senior year, I really felt great about having that exposure. And whether or not you're the 1, 2, 3, or 4 guy, that exposure I think is invaluable. Like you can't put a price on that exposure. And whether you're the number 1 guy or the number 10 guy, I think it's important. And Brian, I just want to say, man, we really haven't gotten into some of the nuts of this, and we're already at 55 minutes.
I know. I was just thinking.
I don't know how much more time we want to take up from you. So I do want to get into your training center there. How long have you been coaching there, and what are some of the visions and goals you have for that program?
I moved back in maybe 2015 was probably the first year that I started it, and so been doing that ever since through the years. Like keep absorbing more and more, and so then it was just high school freestyle. And then it was a little bit of youth folk style because my son was starting to get into it. And then it was developmental wrestling with the local leagues. And so now we kind of provide, and a good sized staff. So now you provide introductory wrestling, a little bit of competitive youth wrestling, really competitive youth wrestling, high school. And so where it's going, that's a good question. I think we're doing a good job. You need to make a couple organizational changes to keep up with the times, to keep, moving through this thing and still providing a really good product for all the age groups. I've been bouncing off, quite a few ideas with, my brother who is in Richmond, Virginia, still coaching, Shane Cunanan, who was, a couple times state champion, All-American for West Virginia. He's been helping out with our program with Coach Roberts, just about what you need to do because, and no knock on anybody that's on the team right now. Maybe when I first started, you got pretty lucky because the wave of kids that you had, you were taking 15 to 20 of them to the US Open and getting 5, 6, 10 placers sometimes, multiple champions and a handful of All-Americans at the NHSCA in Virginia Beach, multiple Fargo All-Americans every year. But things go in waves. And so you're going to come up on a wave of the future, let's call it, with some good cadets and some good schoolboys. And so hopefully what you're seeing is that the ability to now wrestle against those guys that are having success in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Iowa, that are at the very best clubs with the very best coaches, with the very best training partners, that we're able to keep up and then still find that success at the national level. So that's going to take a little bit of changes because some of that's not just having a bunch of talent and then putting your toe on the mat and getting the win.
Are you guys marketing it as, it seems, I love the vision, like at least from an outsider's look, like just looking at your website and looking at your logo, it seems like this could be essentially like the first like RTC. Like
that's what the original idea was. And just coming from the college coaching and the college room, that was kind of the mark that gets you above everybody else, that gets you the recruits. That was kind of the popular idea. And so to come back was like, oh yeah, that's what works at the college level. If I want people to emulate college, then I got to try to, put together a college type of product. Make it as professional as you possibly can and get away from maybe some of the suspect parts of our youth sports that are, people on the mat screaming and yelling and the lack of professionality a little bit in the room sometimes.
Yeah, can you talk about some of the current wrestlers inside that room? And also, you look
I'm
like you're
gonna turn the light on. It's starting to get dark out here on me.
Actually, let's talk about the
We're
wrestlers.
not going to be able to. We're not going to be able to clip this at all. We can't even see Brian's face at all.
It's fine. Let's talk about some of the wrestlers,
There we
but
go.
also let's talk about that facility, Brian. I mean, that doesn't look
looks
like you're in
nice.
a high school gym, my guy.
No, it doesn't. That's got the old Gonzaga Prep T-shirt on, repping these guys for allowing us the access to their room. But format wrestling room. I got bleachers sitting next to me that roll out, and so all parents, all bags, all water bottles, everything's off the mat surface. Again, you're trying to emulate a college room. There's not stuff all around. There's plenty of space for everybody. Put 100 bodies in here, and it feels like there's not enough space, and that's a good problem to have. But yeah, really lucky. You got roll-up windows that are glass, and so it's natural light coming in for half the building.
Right.
So you're at Gonzaga Prep.
At Gonzaga Prep, yep. The projector, and so we're probably don't do enough of it, but you pull up the world championships, you pull up the Olympics, you pull up technique of guys that are winning the best level, and everybody gets to sit around and watch it. The surround sound speakers are second to none. All the Bulgarian bags and ropes and throwing dummies, and yeah, it's the situation couldn't be better.
Yeah,
so really lucky.
I think that's a huge challenge for a lot of clubs in the state is finding space and the costs that come with it. I know my brother is running the sand, and I'm just helping out. I'm not even getting paid, but he's always complaining about where they're going to go. And their lease was up in their facility, and it was a nice facility, but they couldn't afford it. So they're looking for something else. And now they're at Glacier Peak High School and Snohomish High School, and, finding ways to get in the room and make it the best experience as possible. Cause I know it's not cheap to be able to do it, but it looks like you guys have a really awesome thing going there.
The original, so this is centrally located in town.
Where in town?
In Spokane.
Okay, yeah. Do you have all the info on the club travel costs, like stuff like that? Just or what's it cost to come in there, and where's it at in Spokane, in downtown Spokane?
Yeah, it's just north. We're a couple $100 for the freestyle season for the guys. It's a couple $100 per season that you do.
That's great.
So that's one thing is you got to this isn't my job. So it's a nonprofit. You make it affordable for everybody.
I feel like you guys have like a little bit of, I don't know if advantage is the right word, but like you got a big city, and it's you got a good history of U-High and Meade and C-Val and East Valley and like all those schools right around there, and everything is so central. And Seattle doesn't have that. That when you look at Metro League and Ginkgo, it's no knock on anybody who's listening from those districts, but that's all basketball and football. And you guys, and you got good football programs out there and everything, but like, I don't want to say it's easier for you guys, but you have a good thing going there. And if you can find a facility that you can be centrally located to pull those guys in, that's awesome, man. That's part of the reason why you brought you on. And
well, the other, of the 150 some kids that we have in the freestyle right now, depending on the age groups, 25, 30 of them are from North Idaho.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's from surrounding areas.
Yeah.
North Idaho. I mean, I was thinking about inviting, their head coach on to join in this podcast, when I was like, well, this isn't Washington wrestling. Well, it kind of is because everybody's going there.
He's recruiting the state and doing a really good job. That'd be a heck of a guy to have on. Derek's doing great.
Yeah. That's great.
And then just real quick, our Instagram feed dropped. I got it back on. I'm quick like that. But if anybody has any questions for Brian, now's the time to kind of put them in the chat that I can try my best to answer them. But Brian, the thing that I can't let you go, we're not going to take up too much more of your time. This has been a long podcast. You've done phenomenal. Like you could tell the passion is just unreal. And that I think is amazing. It truly is. But I'd like to actually talk about Boise State a little bit. I think it's something that it weighs heavy a little bit on my heart. The Boise State program was especially when you were there, had some champions and had a really great run. And I would say at the time that you were there, they were the dominant team in the Pac-12 and next to, some of the others. But, it wasn't like Boise State wasn't successful at the time that the cut of the program had happened. I don't know. I'm sure you have had a chance to be vocal about it, but I'd like to ask you to be vocal about it here to our audience now, because I think it's something that we'd like to, bring up is we'd like to see the furthering of the sport at that level in this area some more. But can you speak on Boise State cutting the program and a little bit about your time there?
Yeah, unfortunate. I think I wish there was a easy answer or something to blame that was more real than probably this scenario. And I think if you went to the University of Oregon back in the day, you feel the exact same way. I think a lot of the Pac-12 affiliate programs and the Pac-12 programs that got cut, maybe further back, it was more Title IX related. And sometimes I think it's just wrong place, wrong time. I wasn't in, any secret meetings or anything, and I don't know more information than probably others that could speak better on it. I believe the people that had the ultimate power at the college didn't like the sport in itself. The old Ed Oliverti, right? The world's oldest and greatest sport. They didn't feel that way at all. And that's probably pretty cut and dry, where it's very strange to have people make maneuvers like that to completely get rid of, teams, because they cut multiple sports too after that. So then it became a plague. But to cut the ability for people to earn themselves scholarships, to prevent people from, having the experiences and the teammates and the future, like I have to be able to give back. And I'm really grateful for, and you take that away for 30 people every year. And it's a shame. But somebody was able to, or multiple people were able to just get that thing done in a very unproductive manner and pretended like they did it and pit wrestling against baseball. And then they never had an official baseball team. They did it, like they introduced it. It was still a club. They didn't get the amount of years that they needed, never got a stadium, kind of forced the thing through, and then it just fell apart. But the word back then was, we're picking baseball over wrestling, and that just wasn't the truth. That was a lie.
Yeah, it seemed like they just wanted to cut the program, and then they were hiding behind the baseball program as kind of a thing. And I'd have a theory that I think women's wrestling is actually going to be, or at least at that time was probably something that would have really helped a lot of these D1 programs, because you could add the women to it and then be able to keep it around just because you could at least allow women to also do it. But now it seems like they have their own teams. And so hopefully, do you think that will encourage a little bit more D1 opportunities for colleges that don't have them, because they are allowed to, have a sport for the women to get up into that level? Or,
I'm not quite sure on that. If that held true, and this is the only example that, I have, because that's the only one I was a part of. If that was true, then why did they cut women's swimming and diving? Or maybe it was just diving. I forget, how they did it. But, then they went through and got rid of more sports afterwards. And so if it was just that case wasn't necessarily true. They just didn't want the sport, whether it was men's or women's. Now
let's put Boise to the side. Do you think at all that would just help the sport now that women there's so many, and the programs are popping up everywhere? I think, in my personal opinion, I think that helps bring back wrestling to a lot of these teams. I could be wrong, but at least that's where I'm looking at where it could be super beneficial for the D1 level programs.
I don't know the answer, but I haven't seen the evidence. Right. It's just getting going. So like you're saying that because it hasn't had a fair shake to be able to, they're just getting official programs. They're just applying for, whatever we full, sponsorship from the schools, that kind of thing. So the evidence isn't there because it couldn't have been for the amount of time that it's been allotted. So we'll see. I don't know, because I've heard it for 20 years and it hasn't been true yet. Not to say it won't be, but it hasn't been yet.
I know that money is the driving factor behind all of this, for sure, right? The budgets are tight when it comes to D1 programs and stuff, but
Sam, not to cut you off, I think my battery is going to die.
Oh, okay. Let's wrap it up.
Also, if I cut away, that's why. But maybe let's have a conversation, after the Pan Ams.
Let's bring Brian on twice. So look at that. Look,
he's done.
Yes, dude. And
he's done. Wow, he called it.
He did. He called it.
He knows exactly when his battery's gonna die.
And you know what's crazy is Brian invited himself on the podcast after the Pan Am, so we don't even have to worry about we don't have to worry about asking him to come back on.
He's just like Pan Am.
I'll go ahead and remove Brian from the stream. But man, I mean, geez, we talked to this guy. It was so easy when you get to someone who you can clearly see the passion for the sport, and it gets me jazzed as a coach. Gosh. It gets me like, man, I need to do more. It never makes me feel like, anything other than, man, we need to be doing more. There's a lot more that we could give back. I think to speak about one thing that he mentioned was opportunities that funnel down from the top at the coaching level. He's right. Like if you don't have these North Idaho programs, if you don't have these Boise State, Oregon State programs, and those coaches don't funnel down, those elite level athletes don't funnel down to becoming elite level coaches. And that is awesome, because you're right. Coaching is the only thing that really matters. These kids, all they want to do is they want to be good at a sport. They want to give it their all. And I want something that's very passionate for me, and I'm sure you too, is I want to help people succeed.
If we're gonna do what everybody is, wanting to do, and also like kind of, just what I've seen with forums and message boards and comments on Instagram and stuff, is there's just a lot of like negative energy going out there about, oh, it's never going to happen. And, it's just, it's such an uphill battle and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's just the wrong attitude to have. And Brian has the right attitude. He's giving back, he's passionate about this sport. He never left it. And, Matt and I, we've taken time off, but we're back in it because we love this thing. And we need more coaches to come back, and we need more people to get involved, and we need more people to show up and do these things that are necessary to get this thing growing. And I don't think it's as far away as people think it actually is. You know what I'm saying? Especially because the girls are doing so well. Iowa has a program right now, and I bet you our girls would beat Iowa in a duel, right now. I would say that right now. I'm dead serious. Like we would beat Iowa in a duel if you put all of our college girls head to head against Iowa right now. I think we would.
Oh, you mean the girls that came from Washington that are wrestling in college? Okay, yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean.
Saying? Like we beat them. And so it's not like the talent isn't here. It's not like the fandom isn't here. It's just pulling some strings and getting people to buy in to the positive energy, to the optimism that it takes to get these programs back. But aside from that, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Let's keep the energy that Brian has.
I felt bad because it's like, on the very first podcast, I was not as hip to our Instagram stream, so I didn't follow the questions. And then I made a call to action for the questions for Brian, and then Brian's phone died. I feel so bad, but I promise we're going to be able to get these things righted. And man,
just episode 2. It's all good.
It's just episode 2, and I think we're doing pretty good here. And for those who are still tuning in, trust me, the rankings are coming. Okay, Sam, we're doing this to continue to dive in to show, why we're here, trying to put this up and elevate it. And I think, man, Brian Owen, that is such a name from our past, man. I'm telling you, for us to have wrestled Brian, that's years ago, that's years ago. And to see him just as ecstatic about coaching and bringing these kids up, that's such an awesome thing. Again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate everybody for listening, commenting, liking, subscribing. Sam, you're doing a fantastic job keeping everybody up on everything. And I think, you've started a snowball that's snowballing bigger and bigger. And now, like, I could just see it's like my source of information. If it doesn't come directly from you, I'm not getting it, so it's like, I don't know that it's convenient. And I think that you're doing a great job. And
yeah, we got state next week. We got state this weekend.
Freestyle State. Let's get out there. Let's have a great showing for everybody, and hope everybody has a good tournament. And it's far for a lot for us over here, so it's going to be a fun little travel weekend. But for Sam Otto, I am Matt. We are the Washington Wrestling Rankings podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys. Oh wait, I got a comment right here.
Uh-oh.
Adam says, good work, fellas.
Thanks,
you, Adam. Really appreciate you. Have a great day.